Hello, we are Helene and Josephine from Intercult and Liz Gardiner from Fablevision, and we welcome you to this webinar that is about how the use of digital media can strengthen local culture. This is a series of webinars and where we highlight some inspirational examples of how digital tools are used and learned to enhance culture all over Europe. And this is a part of an ongoing Erasmus Plus project called Bridging Digital. And today, as our first guest, we will be hosting Liz Gardiner from Fablevision, who will give examples of how students and inhabitants of a small and abandoned fishing village helps to give the community new life. But first, a little background about Bridging Digital. Bridging Digital is a European partnership between 4 organizations in 4 European countries. We all have various backgrounds and fields of activities, but we are all in the creative sector. So we are Fablevision, that is a cultural organization in Scotland. We are City Cultural Center, which is a municipal culture center in Poland. And we are also Hellenic Adult Education Association, which is an adult learner provider in Greece. So, and also Intercult, which is a private cultural organization promoting culture in Sweden and all over Europe. So we all share the same challenge within our target groups. The digital gap has grown between the cultural sector and other sectors in our society. And the professionals and learners need to learn how to integrate digital tools in their daily work. So that's the background of the project Bridging Digital, where we will create training programs and methodologies for teaching digital tools to the cultural sector. But before we give the stage to our guest, Liz, I will give the word to Josephine, who will tell us a little bit more about Europa Direkt. That is one of the tasks for Intercult.
Thank you. Would you like to know more about the European Union, about European cultural and creative industries, and partake in discussion regarding to the future of Europe? Then you can contact us at Europa Direkt Stockholm. Intercult has been a part of the European Direct Network since 2009, and today our resource center's name is Europa Direkt Stockholm, which has the mission to inform, initiate debate, create meeting places in accordance with the European Commission's communication priorities, and we organize seminars, workshops, provide guidance and questions about and related to the EU. So shaping Europe's digital future is the strategy that the European Commission has for the digital transition that should work for all, putting people first and opening new opportunities for business. Digital solutions are key to fighting climate change and achieving the green transition as well. So we at Europa Direkt Stockholm wants to highlight the digital transition within the cultural and creative industries in Europe. And during recent years, due to the COVID pandemic, digital technology and digital interaction within the artistic scene have drastically changed, developed, and now carries a different value than before. So what does and could the shaping of Europe's digital future mean to cultural and creative industries? And how can the use of digital media strengthen local culture? With that said, it is now my honor to present Executive Director and Cultural Planner Liz Gardiner from Fablevision in Scotland. Thank you, and the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Josephine, and thank you for having me to share with you what we've been up to during our contribution to this wonderful Erasmus project that we're all engaged with. This is obviously very, very important for Scotland. Scotland has suffered Brexit and has been removed from the European Union. So being part of this Erasmus programme is important on all sorts of levels. not least of which, of course, is sharing of learning and practice. And Fablevision, my organisation, we've been working in the cultural sector now since 1984. We've been working always with artists, intervening within community settings, within policy agendas of one sort or another. Our first exploration of what can artists bring to the narrative of policy was with folks with disabilities. And we worked all across Scotland and identified people with disabilities who were really interested in taking their creativity further. And out of that came a new theatre company, an organisation called Birds of Paradise. And that organisation still exists today and is award-winning and creates wonderful work. We also work in geographical communities where very often the community has been forgotten or overlooked, or the people there feel themselves to be overlooked and neglected. So we've often had projects where we help the local people identify their cultural resources, celebrate those cultural resources, and then build on them creatively for the future. So we are an artist-led organisation where we're interested in artists and what artists can bring, but we're also focused on heritage, natural heritage, the built environment heritage, what communities have within their DNA. I'm a cultural planner, so that's what I do, is help communities to identify their cultural resources within their DNA, what makes them unique, both from their history, from their heritage, from their myths and legends, from their own narratives, from their own people, as well as the natural environment. So when pandemic hit, we've been so used to working physically within communities and relating person to person with community members, with artists. It was for a while quite devastating to think, how on earth do we carry on with this socially engaged practice, with artists intervening in an engaged way within communities when we can't actually even leave our houses. So one of the transitions that we've made over the years is a realization that every time a project happens, it needs certain things. It needs support from social media. It needs support from film and images. It needs events to take it forward and celebrate what's happening. So we had established a trading arm, a social enterprise called Fablevision Studios. And the studios engage with long-term unemployed people, people with long-term conditions, and they learn digital skills, film, media, building websites, social media, making films and presenting them online. So it seemed very obvious during the pandemic that that was the area to concentrate on. They were already working in that way. They were already building those skills. So many of the projects that we did during 2020 and 2021 were blended, both digital and physical. So we were still meeting where we could, outside, outdoors, but most of the work was happening online in the digital space. What we have seen in terms of our own journey is not so much that we all need to learn how to make digital technology work, or how to create VR images, or how to operate cameras. We've learned that that's not where we want to be going with it. Where we want to be going is learning how we can engage with the people with those relevant skills and bring those skills into the work that we're already doing. So when we were asked to choose 2 case studies for Bridging Digital, we had already been working with the University of the West of Scotland, who had been engaging over quite a long period with a community in Ayrshire in Scotland called Denna. Now, Denna is a small ex-fishing village. We have many of those, mainly on the coasts of Scotland, obviously, where fishing has been the industry, fishing has been the livelihood. The men have gone to sea and brought the living back to the village and lived and died on the storms at sea. And suddenly fishing was no longer a viable industry within Denna. So when the University of the West of Scotland started to engage as artists and students, digital new media arts students with Trent Kim, their director, the narrative about Denna was that it was on the decline. It had nothing to offer. There was no jobs, there was no training or employment, because all of that had gone with the vanished fishing industry. But when we visit Denna, we see a glorious landscape with the most fantastic castle, heritage castle. It's quite a half demolished castle, but it has a huge history and heritage behind it. It's been used in big American productions like Outlander. The Americans love castles and they love that scenery. And it has the oldest lighthouse in Scotland, possibly the oldest in Europe. We've yet to establish that. We're going to try and find that out. And it has this glorious scenery and this lovely harbour. It's actually a jewel. So with the relationship with the University of the West of Scotland and the aspirations of Denna Community Trust to set up a community-driven initiative that would try and celebrate the heritage of Denna, and in so doing attract tourists, so that the new industry emerging out of the death of fishing would be tourism. And of course, early conversations about how do we create a heritage centre and new media arts. Well, community members really couldn't see, well, first of all, didn't really know what new media arts were, or what digital technology was. And when they did, could not for the life of them see how that could be of any use whatsoever to an ex-fishing village with folk music and, you know, fiddles and whistles and that kind of tradition. They couldn't see how digital arts could possibly be something that could be of any benefit or any support to them in what they were trying to achieve. Until, of course, Trent Kim and the students arrived and they started to work together. And as we love to experience, and our pedagogical approach, if you like, is not so much teacher-pupil as co-learners. So we're traveling a journey together. The artists and the students are learning the history and the heritage of Denna. They're learning about the people and the aspirations of the people of Denna. On the other hand, the community members are learning about digital technology and how it could be possible to use that digital technology to support their aspirations for the regeneration of Denua. So it's a Bauhaus contexts, it's a co-learning, it's a sharing of practice together and learning together. So that has very much been the journey of Denua. The students have all taken aspects of the history and they've created digital pieces for projection onto the walls of the castle. And this all built towards an event which happened in December 2021. So what I'd like to do is show the film that our Fablevision studios made, our long-term unemployed people, our people with long-term conditions, because they were learning as well. They were learning about Denua, about this new style of technology, digital projections. They were bringing their expertise with film and they were learning about how to make digital projections. So we were all in this melting pot of learning and sharing together. So the film that they made about the Denua project and is on the event just before Christmas last year, I'd like to now share with you if I can.
Basically, Denua, we call it like Julie Ayrshire because of the harbour, etc., and it's well known in the castle. I think it's got great potential.
Bridging Digital is Erasmus-funded research projects. Within this framework that we have set out for the projects, we've got 2 sets of studies, and I have nominated the Denua projects, which our students contributed to. I was interested in how to set community relationships.
Then COVID happened and everything kind of just it stopped, and they were also at that time going to try and promote the heritage of the village and the fishing and things. So it's great that it started up again, and hopefully it can develop further.
The idea was when this is a success, and it would happen annually, we could also have music on it and make an event to bring people into the village. And the place is modernist, and I believe it or not, it is. It's unbelievable the amount of people that come, but they come and there's nothing there for them. So that's why we're trying to get a heritage centre.
I think one good thing that's come from the pandemic for us in the coffee shop, we've had a lot of people come here from Britain now that would maybe have been abroad. They've had to, because of circumstances, take their holidays in Britain. We're hoping that they continue to come, even when everything opens back up, that they'll remember this wee village and continue to come here.
The last stage of the projects, it was called the Stories and Histories of Denua, and we wanted to utilise the projection mapping technology to tell local stories. We are approaching this project not as a social scientist or archivist. We are approaching it as an artist, and always thinking about the new media art, how the amalgamation between technology and social and cultural contexts, as well as artistic practice, can produce something quite original. So it was all based on their creative research and their creative strategies, to whether it's focusing on the format or the narratives, or perhaps incorporating with the site specificity that the Denua Castle offered.
My group wanted to keep it strictly to the history. We wanted it to keep it quite noticeable, that if you knew, you know it's Denua. You can tell it's Denua from the people that's in it, like my great-grandpa and his boats are in it, which are also the boats that my dad fished on when he started the fishing industry as well. If you look in the harbour, it's tiny little boats, it's not anything in comparison to what it used to be. My photos are looking at maybe over 50 boats in that harbour at one point, and there's not that now. I think there's a basic age bracket of like my grandparents here that don't know much about technology, and I know when I started to tell them what I was doing, they didn't have an understanding of it, had to explain it. So I think they've learned about a very basic understanding of how it works when I have learned about the history.
So there are lots of logistic challenges that we didn't foresee, but they were all part of the risk assessment to an extent, and that's why we managed quite well. But it was a tough process because that has not been done previously. I didn't see what kind of textures that the castle was able to bring to those projection artworks, but also the sceneries, because I haven't been there at that time, at that kind of time of day.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see it. I don't think really anything's been done in Dunure Castle like this before. It was used for different projects in film. I think it was an Outlander, but I don't think anything live for the village has ever happened like this before. So I think it'll be nice to see historic elements from the past being portrayed in image. COVID really affected it in the fact that this was all waiting to happen a couple of years ago, that we were actually the first to get it. So I think as long as they keep it growing, and I think the community would like it and like to see it, they like to be able to talk about positives within it.
It was meant to be the projects that happens within 2019 and 2020, but due to the pandemics, so we didn't have that last final showcasing that we hoped. But we resumed it, but in fact we added additional project. So we are developing a digital archive website, and that will include all the previous works as well as the rationals, and you will give any future researchers or anybody involved in the campaign to look at the great value that the village offers, but also the artist collaborations.
So that gives you a flavour of the kind of explorations that we charted together. Since that film was made, Ronnie Auld, the chair of the Community Council, has sadly passed away. So that's why the film is in his memory. So what's wonderful is that the community have got the vision now of what is possible. They want this to be an annual event. They want to build on it. They want to have a festival each year. They want to continue their relationship with the University of the West of Scotland and the students. So I don't think Ronnie's efforts will be in vain. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. I'm so curious. It's so beautiful to see how you can make these old buildings come alive. I'm thinking, actually, we have some old castles and lighthouses in Sweden too. We have Landsort Lighthouse that was built in 1690. So that would be maybe a tip for them, because they are facing similar challenges with people moving out and the village not being used the same way as it was before. But Liz, I'm just curious, the people who are living there, what was their impression of this, and do they want a lot of tourists to come, and what's their hopes?
Absolutely. Well, as I say, when the discussions with Trent and the students started at first. There was bemusement. They really couldn't understand how digital media would have anything to offer in Denur. But they were very open and willing, and I think, you know, Trent is so enrolling, and you can't help but warm to what he's suggesting, and so they went along with it. He involved the local council, so councillors were involved, the community council was involved. So there were local residents, there were, you know, members of those different groupings involved, and also the Denur Heritage Centre Trust, which is just emerging and really had just started to get the idea of maybe a heritage centre would be a good idea, linked to the castle and the lighthouse. And that what they would need would be to have things happening that would attract people there, because just a heritage centre on its own, although it would perhaps be telling a great story, if there aren't other things to do and see when they come, because Denur is very far down the coast, you've really got to be determined to get to Denur to go there. There would be nothing else to come for. So when the members of the community saw the potential of this and experienced the event, I think it's fair to say there was nothing short of a transformation in the sort of enthusiasm, and suddenly new media arts, digital technology was something that they absolutely wanted to embrace and bring in. And of course, none of them have any idea how to actually do it. But that's my point. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I can operate a digital tool. It doesn't matter that they can operate digital tools. What matters is that they see the potential, they make the relationships with the people who do know how to operate those digital tools, and they bring those in to the mix, so that the next steps of the creation of Denur Heritage Centre will have digital technology at its heart. And you can just imagine, you know, something very state-of-the-art on the hill above the castle, which has screens that you can touch screens that you can bring to life some of these interesting aspects of the history. I mean, you got a wee bit of a flavour of the history from the film there, but it's been a fascinating history over the centuries. So, and they're getting that as well. They're seeing the idea of touch screens and
so maybe
in their heritage centre. Some
local inhabitants will feel inspired to learn a little bit, so they can project these wonderful images next year.
Well, as I say, to us, that's not the point. It's not the point that anybody locally learns digital technology. I don't want to learn digital tech. I'm not interested in learning how to do that. What I'm interested in is what the expertise can bring, and knowing who those experts are, who share the vision, who share the aspiration, and can bring that knowledge and expertise in. And I think that's why Denur is so excited to be engaged with the University of the West of Scotland and Trent Kim and the New Media Arts Department and all the students, because every year they know there will be a new set of students will be coming through. They'll be creating a new project every year, and Trent will be able to introduce new students and new ideas every year. So they've got that. The people of Denur are very, very savvy. They don't need to learn how to do it. They need to learn how to make friends with the people who do know how to do it.
So it means building good relationships then between students, universities, and local communities. That would be long-lasting cooperations.
Very much so. And that's, again, what cultural planning is. Cultural planning is about working from the bottom up, yes, but linking to the top so that you're constantly in a cross-sectoral relationship, that you're constantly working together with public sector, private sector, because the woman in the coffee shop is every bit as important as the heritage centre, because we need to have somewhere to go and eat, and when we're down at the harbour. So and the councillors and the local authority, because the local authority is obviously has the purse strings, but also their agenda is to open up Ayrshire for tourism. That's one of their key agenda items, is exploring how Ayrshire can be more attractive for tourists, because Ayrshire is absolutely glorious. We know that, but tourists coming don't necessarily know that. It can be quite hidden. So North Ayrshire Council have been very, very excited too about opening up Ayrshire to tourists and having Denna as a dual attraction.
So Liz, what do you think what were the greatest challenges in this cooperation? Because I know that your people from Fablevision Studios also were involved.
Yeah, I mean, what we were, our role in this particular project, and that's not always the case. Very often we're in the Trent Kim role, or we're sort of making those links and relationships. But our role as Fablevision and the studios in this case was much more about documentation. It was much more about interpreting what was happening, and then creating the film to tell the story. So our role now is to put this film out through channels like this, and let people see what Ayrshire is, because you there in Stockholm, you're now thinking, wow, we want to come and see that castle.
Yeah.
You are, I just know you are, because you couldn't help but be, it's delicious. So that's part of our role now, is how to disseminate that as widely as possible, so that we help Denna on its way to becoming a tourist attraction.
That's so fascinating. Do you think that there would be other digital tools apart from this that the students are teaching or learning that would be useful for like a project like this?
Well, I think now that they've seen what digital technology can bring to their vision and their aspiration, I think that they will carry on from there. I think they're already seeing the possibility of a sort of virtual creation of a heritage centre, which you can walk through and see what it might look like in reality. As I said, they've already got the ideas of the touchscreen interpretation boards for showing films and images, and telling the stories of their history and heritage. And they've got the idea for this annual festival that has happened. It happened in December last year, and it can happen, annually as a nighttime digital projection event, using the castle as a backdrop, which was phenomenal. I mean, the castle lit up was glorious.
Yeah. And was all the audience standing? Was it during the night then, where the audience was watching it?
Yes, they were we were all standing in a field, absolutely frozen.
Oh.
It was snowing, it was raining, it was blowing a gale. You got a wee hint of it from the film there. It was awful, but it was.
But you can't really see
absolutely
it in the video. That it was snowing and raining.
Yeah.
From the projection. Well, I think we've gone through the meaningfulness of digital technology. I think you answered the question I had, or we had. Yeah.
Mm. But I'm thinking like for the woman in the film who was saying that she was hoping that there still would come tourists next year when hopefully the pandemic is over. Do you think that they would feel inspired maybe to learn more about social media or like marketing tools? Because that's also an important tool. I mean, it's not just producing, it's also getting the audience and getting a wider audience.
And that's something that the university students in Trent have already been helping with. One of the groups last year, well, they've done lots of different projects. One of them did the sort of recreation of the Heritage Centre idea. Another group did signage because the signage is not good. And so they did a project which was about recreating the signage. Oh gosh, I've forgotten what the question was now. I knew where I was going.
If they can be inspired to learn more themselves for like example, for marketing.
Yes, and one of the projects was the students created a website for Denna Heritage Centre, and a website that would be able to continually host articles, put out social media posts and tell the story. And yes, there are members of that committee who are skilled in those areas, and yes, they will definitely take that forward and use social media and all the other sort of digital tools at their disposal.
That's great. So I know for sure that Josephine and I will try to book a ticket for next year's festival if there is one. So you sure inspired us.
Yes.
So we really thank you, Liz, for showing this to us. And we will put a link in the webinar to some information about the village and maybe something about this project, as well as some information about the Bridging Digital project.
Indeed, and the film that I've shown it's still in progress. It hasn't yet been signed off, is what we call it, by Trent. So once it is, we will put it up on the website, and you can put the link to it from there too.
Okay, so thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. And we will get back with some more inspirational webinars about the same theme. So watch out. Bye.